We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, friends. Kirk and Josh coming to you. The latest we've come to you in a while. The Dallas Mavericks just played the Boston Celtics. It is Friday, March 1st. It's about 10 o'clock. They got waxed by the Boston Celtics, 138 to 110. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Feels like people are mad.
I think so. I mean, anytime you get waxed on national TV,
it's not fun.
There's a... You know, like my mom will watch this game and she'll call me tomorrow and be like, "That Luka Doncic." Have lots of comments, and then ask me if I knew if Jason Tatum was from St. Louis. It's just it's the way the day is going to go. The thing about the Celtics is they are really good.
They're very good.
And somebody, I think it was our guy Matthew, said he's like, "Well, they're not going to hit threes all game after the first quarter." And what ended up happening was they, in fact, did hit threes all game because just about every single guy that gets significant minutes for the Boston Celtics is capable of being a really solid three-point shooter in any given night. And
yeah. They lead the league in three-pointers made per game.
Mm-hmm.
They lead the league in three-point percentage. Well, no, they don't. They don't lead in percentage, but they're like top – they're like top 10 in percentage, top 5 actually. So
like I sort of went into this game. This is why that Raptors win was frankly pretty important because you don't want to have a 4-game losing streak. Beating the Celtics would have been a capstone win. The Celtics have only lost 3 times at home all season. I did not expect the Mavericks to win. The recipe for the Mavericks win was Luka Doncic be really good, Kyrie Irving be really good, random role player X be really good, and then be there in the clutch to make it interesting. That was going to be the way that the Mavericks were going to win this game. And in my opinion, we got very good Luka. We had very ineffective Kyrie. And then we had PJ Washington play pretty well, but he was also involved in the stretch where the Dallas Mavericks just got blown off the floor. The Mavericks were down by 3, and it's like 77-74, I think it was. And then Coach Kidd subs in Tim Hardaway, who ends up taking a lot of criticism tonight, though I don't necessarily think it was his fault. The Mavericks go super small and just proceed to get ran right off the fucking floor. And I want to say I understand why people are mad, because losing is embarrassing, but I also, the specific criticisms where we're heading, and we should talk about some of the things that were where the Mavericks fell apart. I have a hard time getting super bothered by the choice because I don't necessarily think the other option was like a winning formula. Like if I had let's go through some of some more solid parts of the game, and then I think we can kind of pivot to criticism. Like this was another astounding Luka game. 37 points in 37 minutes, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. I don't think he had an assist in the first quarter. So that he finished with 11 assists was pretty interesting. Only 2 turnovers. He really started shredding the Celtics pick and roll coverage, and just really, really beautiful passes tonight from Luka. I was very pleased overall with his play. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think his passing was really crisp. He didn't necessarily have a pass that was as good as that pass to Timmy in the Toronto game, that kind of no look over the shoulder to the corner. But he was not
he was like a surgeon.
Yeah, everything was on target. He wasn't trying kind of those loosey passes, which usually are good for a turnover or two. Like it felt like he was very careful with the ball and with his placement tonight. Thought he was pretty methodical. I didn't think he forced too many shots. He was 3 of 9 from 3. He took 25 shots, but it felt like mostly good shots. He missed some bunnies around the rim.
Yep.
Actually, like I thought that was actually kind of where, if he did struggle a little bit, and you could see him kind of like, figuratively kicking himself after a couple of misses. Like he missed an and one off an offensive rebound that like he usually makes like 9 out of 10 times.
Right, that one was weird.
Yeah, and it like spun out too. Like when it banked off the backboard, I was like, oh, okay, that's an and one, and then it kind of just like did a little spin-a-rooney in the cup, and then bounced out. So otherwise, yeah, he was pretty great offensively. Defensively, I don't think anyone was really good defensively, so we'll get into that later. But yeah, offensively, he played about as well as he could have, and he was he really had that Celtics team kind of in terror through about 2.5 quarters until this game kind of got out of hand. Because there were, like you said, there were moments in the third quarter where it felt like this is going to be one of those moments, and it was shaping up to be like he had his hand in everything. Like he was setting PJ Washington for threes. Got PJ Washington a couple dunks, got Lively some dunks. He was making his shots. He was seemingly making the right decision every single time.
Yep.
And then everything kind of just fell apart midway through the third quarter. But up until that point, it was a pretty flawless game for him, offensively at least.
The other really kind of high point of the night was Derek Lively, 7 for 7 from the floor, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, only 2 defensive boards. Got to work on that, bub. But did the Mavericks get killed on the boards?
There weren't a lot of rebounds available tonight.
Yeah,
to be fair,
and that's okay. So it is what it is. I think and we'll circle back to this later. Like we're dipping into why the hell isn't he playing more zone? Because it's like they went on runs that involved Lively as a lob threat and being able to catch multiple ways, both in the air and frankly bounce passes and stuff at his waist, is a valuable weapon. This is the first game I really think in several where we've seen Luka be able to use the roll man. I feel that teams have kind of been bottling the Mavericks up in that regard for several games. Apparently the Celtics broadcast team was pretty effusive in their praise of him, which is interesting because they tend to be just like, well, we'll just call them Dallas Maverick level homers in terms of their broadcast. It's one of the things that makes Boston fans what they are. And so that was just interesting to hear. But then you kind of then there's the rest of the guys, and I want to say PJ Washington had like some key stretches, but he overall was
he was cold, hot, cold.
17 points and 16 shots sucks. It just sucks. You can't as a role guy, you can't do that.
I think he missed his first He missed his first 3 threes, then made his next 3, then missed his next 5 or something like that. I think he started 0 for 2 from 3, then he was 3 for 5, and then he finished 3 for 9. And so he was very streaky.
Yep.
But yeah, he took good shots. I don't really think he took some bad shots. The only thing that he took, there was one sequence that was really killer in the second half. And I think this was kind of part of the third quarter that's kind of started the third quarter avalanche. Mm-hmm. He drove into the paint, and it was a good drive, and he basically gets like maybe a step outside the restricted line.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one defender that's kind of in no man's land, and he either has a wide open kind of little short floater, or he has Lively right at the rim for an easy lob, and he just elects to go for the floater, misses the floater, doesn't come down with offensive rebound, and then the Celtics make a three. It's like that's a 5-point swing.
I'll give you the swings. I'm looking at it. Lively makes a dunk at the 6-minute mark. The Mavericks are down by 2 points. PJ Washington misses a three. Jaylen Brown hits a three. Celtics are up by 5. PJ Washington misses a floater. PJ Washington gets his own board, but he's blocked by Drew Holiday. And then Tatum hits a three, and it goes from being a 2-point game to an 8-point game in 2 possessions. And at that point, the Mavericks were cooked. Luka kind of had him hanging around a little towards the end of the quarter, where it was they pull within 6, they pull within 5, but then all of a sudden the game's out of hand again. And by the end of that quarter, it was down by 14. And that was sort of where things went sideways. Like the first half was pretty fun. The Mavericks hung on a little bit. The first half was an instance of when Luka goes to the bench, the Mavericks couldn't keep pace.
Especially with how Kyrie was playing.
Right. And so, all right, let's take a quick break, and then we're gonna circle back to kind of the things that were less fun. Those of y'all who are here, appreciate you joining the show. If you could go down and give this show a like, I would appreciate it. If you could consider subscribing to the show here on YouTube, those of you who are watching live, I would also appreciate that. If you are listening on an audio feed on Saturday, Sunday morning, maybe before the 76ers game, consider subscribing to our show. Really appreciate that. I'm not sure. I tend to do a post-game show every night, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do a second post-game one. We've been having it's been a not fun 24 hours with the 4-month-old infant, and my wife needs I need to help my wife out more tonight, so I don't think I'm going to do a secondary show tonight. But thanks for listening to the show. If you could go ahead and then give these 2 brief ads a listen to, because that's one way Josh and I actually get paid. So we'll be right back.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
This episode is brought to you by Hyperice, the leader in advanced warm-up and recovery technology. They have tons of innovative products, like Venom-heated wearables to help soothe sore back muscles, Normatec compression boots to speed up recovery and increase circulation, and Hypervolt massage guns to improve mobility. Loved by athletes like Naomi Osaka and Erling Haaland. Try them yourself. Get 10% off your order with the code MOVE at Hyperice.com.
Okay, so what if I told you that Kyrie Irving has lost to the Boston Celtics 10 straight times?
I would believe that.
That hurts, man.
Does that include the playoffs? Because
I'm not sure. Somebody sent me that stat, and I'm like, it's tough because it's the Celtics are a team that's built to kind of cage somebody like Kyrie just due to their size and length, and the fans were chanting at him, and it's a dicey deal. So it's like you go back to kind of my 3 main points for winning this game, and he just, he ended up with, let's see here. I had it pulled up and then I moved away from the box score. He ended up with 19 points on 23 shots. Like, that's rough. His 3 is 1 of 7 from 3. He only had 1 turnover. That part's fine. 4 rebounds. He was missing bunnies at the rim. And like when Kyrie's missing stuff at the rim, you're just not getting a good game from Kyrie. He had a lot of opportunity and it did not go down.
Yeah, he was 3 of 7 in the restricted area, which is bad. He was 2 of 5 in the paint outside the restricted area, which is also not ideal. Didn't make any of his threes. Yeah, he was just bad.
He had 1 3.
Oh yeah, I know. I was just meaning like just overall.
Oh, in mass for sure. Because he's apparently one of the league's most frequent. Like he's made like in the top 10 in the league in pull up threes. He's been really on point with his 3-point shot in 2024 in particular. And so I had somebody tell me, he's like, he's just kind of due for a bad game. And I don't like being like soft on any player, mainly, but I do kind of think that's a good take on this. Like I expect Kyrie to come back on Sunday against the 76ers and have a great game. So I don't want to,
honest. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just gonna say, honestly, I know they weren't going to win with Kyrie playing this kind of game offensively because that basically means Luka, the non-Luka minutes are torpedoed, and they've already been kind of bad the last 2 weeks, the non-Luka minutes. But if he's not shooting well, so that's part of it. But also, he was atrocious defensively today. He was very bad. Anything off ball with Kyrie lately has been pretty bad. Anything off ball with almost every Mavericks defender lately has been pretty bad in the last few days. Teams are really picking on these guys in off ball rotations and communication.
Well, the zone Kyrie didn't make sense to me. Like, why are the Mavericks running a zone? They kept getting beat from behind on the zone, and then meaning basically on the baseline. And it felt like over and over the guy in the ball would swing all the way around or swing like cut across the lane. And whoever was supposed to drop down, usually like a Josh Green, Luka pointed at him like 3 times, didn't make the rotation down. And I'm like, why are they running a zone? Like why would you play a zone against the friggin' Celtics who can shoot the ball? What are we doing?
Well, you want a fun fact? The Celtics made 21 3-pointers and also scored 62 points in the paint.
Boom, boom, boom. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt the old defensive rating.
Yes, it is. Their shot chart, they made 0 mid-range jump shots tonight. Everything was threes, rim, and paint. So they were 0 for 6 from mid-range tonight. So
so the Kyrie part hurt, and you just kind of leave it where it is.
There are too many possessions where with Kyrie, I don't know if you see these when he's defending off ball where he's not guarding anyone. Mm-hmm. And it's like he's in between 2 guys, not sure where to help or where to kind of rotate. And it's almost like he's trying to split the difference. And what happens is 2 people are open instead of 1 person is open because he doesn't close out to the, he doesn't get to close out either. Mm-hmm. So that's been tough. And he's not the only one. There's other guys that are pretty lost off ball.
It's half the team felt like tonight. I mean, then there was, I made the statement that Tim Hardaway was negative in 20 minutes. He was negative 21 points because he was on the floor for that really rough run that we just described. And Timmy by himself is not the problem. It's going to be very controversial. Tim is a problem. Tim is not the problem. The problem is that the Mavericks don't really have a 3 that they can roll out there and feel comfortable with. They have to play a big guard as their small forward in almost every conceivable circumstance. Josh Green, 6'4" guard. Anybody that thinks he's taller than that, go look at him near Jason Tatum. He ain't. Then you get Dante Exum, who probably should start. Then you have Derek Jones Jr., who has just turned into a pumpkin at this point in the year. Those are your options at small forward. I guess we play PJ Washington there some.
Right,
not really.
But then you're either playing, who's playing the 4 and the 5? Like, are you doing Maxey and another big, which is, I don't think they like to do that.
Right. They never go like jumbo, which this would have been the time to try it, quite candidly, because the Celtics and Denver are like huge.
Yeah, well, and the Celtics are huge, but the Celtics also don't really play.
Yeah, they play skilled, and they played out. Yeah,
Yeah, like it's usually KP is the lone big, and then Horford's the lone big. They did play a little Horford Tillman together, but otherwise, like Tatum is like their power forward. So you can get away with PJ Washington as your 4-man, but again, like you said, when you've got Luka, Kyrie, and then Josh Green, where like who's Josh Green guarding? Who's guarding Tatum and Brown? Like PJ can be on one of them. But then that means either Green, Luka, or Kyrie are on one of the other, of Brown or Tatum. So that makes it tough, and the Celtics are just good. They make it tough. They're so deep. They play basically like 8 guys that are all really pretty good, and they're all tall. Like even their guards, like Derek White and Drew Holiday, like are big guards.
I read Drew Holiday is shooting 63% from the corners on.
Did you see that first corner 3 he made? Like falling out of bounds.
It looked like Luka.
Yeah.
My way in the chat says if you start Exum, you're asking and you're back to asking too much of players. I wanted to highlight this comment because I agree, and it just sort of points to the challenges within the roster at the moment.
Right. And it's been, and you see these challenges against a team that is 47-12. Like you don't see them as much against Toronto Raptors, but you do see them against Cleveland Cavaliers team, which is really the best teams in the league they're gonna highlight your weaknesses a lot more than playing the Wizards or the Spurs or the Toronto Raptors. But yeah, this was one of those games where I think people are like really I don't think a lineup change tonight
would have
significantly. Yeah, like people are mad about Tim Hardaway Jr. playing as much as he did. People are mad about Maxey playing as much as he did, and people are mad about Gafford not playing more. And I don't. If Tim and Maxey played 5 minutes and Gafford played 35, I don't see the result of this game changing too much. Now, I understand people just wanting to see something different because when they see something not working, it's like I don't care if we lose.
Right.
I just want to see something different, and I understand that frustration for sure. But I just don't see a lineup combination that changes the result of this game, because at the end of the day, if your second best player plays as poorly as Kyrie did, if one of your starters and Josh Green plays as poorly as he did, we're talking about backups. Like Maxey and Tim and Gafford are all backups. Like if those guys, like I just don't see those guys swinging the pendulum in a game where you've lost by 28 points and the team made 21 3-pointers. Like, not to say that there isn't things that they can't do and they can't switch around and they can't mix things up, but at the end of the day, your top 4 or 5 guys have to play really well.
Yeah.
And only about 2 of them did. Lively and Luka did. And that, if those are your only 2 players that are really going to show up, I don't really care how you're mix and matching the rest of it. You're probably still going to get thumped on the road to a really good team. And by the way, this was also their 4th game in 6 nights. So
yeah,
like I'm not saying don't be mad or don't ask for something different, but the idea that this game was winnable with some lineup changes,
just a really narrow path to success.
It's tough.
And I come in here guns a-blazing when I really think something bad happened. Like I will call for Kid's head at a moment's notice. It's not hard to get me on the fire, but I just look at this tonight and it's worth it's worth explaining your point about Gafford, because Gafford not playing really flummoxes fans. And I think it's because all of us, myself included, are not great at watching elements of defense and what happens to him. I can tell you, for one, he is just as awful as all the rest of the Mavericks at transition defense.
Yes.
Like he runs so hard on offense, and then on defense, on transition defense, he's bad.
He's also going for offensive rebounds all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good offensive rebounder.
There's some of that's a coaching, like, hey, go grab an offensive board type thing.
Yeah.
But what's happening to him on defense that you think is getting him?
I think he's just kind of a slow-footed defensive big in space, and I know everyone's yelling at me like, well, Maxey's not good in space either, and I'm like, just because I'm talking about one guy doesn't mean I'm praising another guy.
Right.
Like, no Maverick played well defensively except for maybe Lively and PJ Washington.
I would have had Lively in over Maxey, and
I would have played Lively 30 minutes, and I'm starting to wonder why Lively is not playing more. And I don't know if it's a minutes restriction because of the nose, but he was averaging 27 minutes a game in January, and in February and March, he's averaging about 18. And I know the nose is a factor, but I hope that, they need to start being able to ramp him up soon, because I think that's really the answer instead of arguing about bench players.
Sure.
Because Lively's a starter and he's that dude. Like, he's legit. So
there was a play. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there was a play with Maxey, and it was on the offensive end where he's out the roll and he catches the ball in the middle of the floor. And he's just such a different athlete than Lively, where Lively had a similar catch in the first quarter and basically does a turnaround jump hook over Big Al. Maxey catches it near the like 10 to 12 foot mark, and he kind of struggles to catch it. It's a little high. And then he just immediately passes it back out because he can't do anything. And if you're not really helping on defense and you're not really helping on offense, why are you playing? It's like the joke about him and Josh Green getting cardio is real. Like, they're not huge net negatives, but they don't do enough positive either in these sorts of circumstances. 2 years ago, Maxey was huge against the Celtics, and during one of his worst offensive stretches, he was amazing on defense. I remember the game because it was the game where Spencer Dinwiddie hit, I think, a walk-off bullshit three. Do you remember this one?
Yes, I do. Against the Lakers.
Yes.
Crazy.
No. I mean, it was against Boston.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
And like Maxey was a different, but this 2 years ago. Maxey has even less lift now. So it's I don't understand why he's playing.
Yeah, no, I'm like I said, I can point out Gafford's defensive flaws in this specific matchup, by the way, because he does play better against certain teams. Like, I just don't think he's good in drop, in pick and roll coverage against teams that can space you out with a lot of shooting. Mm-hmm. That's not a unique problem for a lot of big men, by the way. That's not a knock on Gafford. Again, he is your backup center. Like, he doesn't need to be elite at these things. And obviously the counter is, they trust Maxey in those situations, but then you look at Maxey, he plays 20 minutes. He has 1 point and 2 rebounds, and the team's bombing away from 3 anyway. Like, where, that's where the disconnect comes from, because it's like, okay, well, we want to see someone else do something if this guy's not going to do anything. So I get it. I'm not trying to point out why Gafford's not playing, to defend why Maxey is playing. I'm just telling you, like, just this is how Gafford plays. And if you want to maybe switch with him more on the perimeter, maybe guard to be a little more aggressive, they could try that. That's not necessarily, the Mavericks don't switch with their centers a lot. Like, they don't switch with Lively a lot.
Which I wish they would.
Thing. They should. Yeah, I would like to see Lively a little bit more. But they do struggle with stretch big men, and that might be a kid coaching scheme thing. But again, like, if Gafford's on the floor, they're playing drop, and he doesn't play drop well against teams that can shoot.
Which are the Celtics.
Yeah, which are the Celtics, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Also, if you watch
frankly, most teams. Drop is not an effective defense against most teams now.
And watch the second quarter against the Cleveland again when Gafford played. When he was on the floor, Cleveland immediately went, okay, pick and roll. Let's get him in the pick and roll, and we're going to pick out shooters. And they just kind of pinged the ball around the court and got open shooters. That's how they got that 15-point lead. So if the idea is maybe they should play a different style defensively, sure, but they also don't play that, outside of Maxey, they just don't seem to trust their bigs to switch. Now, maybe the answer is they should trust their bigs to switch, but I will just offer that Gafford historically has not been known as a plus team defender. This isn't just a thing getting to the Mavericks and playing in the Mavericks scheme. I know he was on Washington. I know he was on Chicago, so he wasn't necessarily on teams that could have been great defensive teams anyway, but I'm just telling you that's just how it is right now. Yeah. If they want to switch with it more, try to use his athleticism more on the perimeter, sure, why not? Because it's obviously not working any other way. But I'm just saying, like, that's why it's happening. And if you disagree, that's fine. But I also just can't get too worked up about a backup not playing more in a game where you lose by 28 points to a team that shoots a lot of threes and is the best team in the NBA. Like, it's just, but I also understand the Maxey stuff is frustrating. And the thing with Maxey is he goes, he had a couple of really good defensive games earlier in the month. I thought he played really well against OKC. I thought he played pretty well against Phoenix. And then he just has these games where it looks like he can't move. So they have to figure out a way to wean themselves off Maxey. Like that's kind of the $1 million question of this roster.
Which I mean, not to be like there are a lot of people that are like calling for Kid's head in the chat and in the Twitters and in the social media. It is my opinion that if there's something that's going to bury Jason Kidd, it is going to be that. It is going to be the continued reliance on Maxey and Tim as as sort of comfort crutches. And I mean, they're the A seed right now. Like, I'm not saying that the other guys would have made a difference, but I just think he's going to go down with the ship playing what he knows. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean he got to the Western Conference Finals with Maxey playing really well defensively, so that's becoming his guy, right? Like,
yep. I mean, Tim McMahon mentioned it on the Hoop Collective a couple of days ago that like Maxey being useful is what is helped propel elements of the Mavericks defense. He only played 20 minutes tonight. It's not like he gets these like big minute things, but again, four games in 6 nights. He did not play against Toronto, which I'm sure was intentional because they probably wanted him to be a little bit fresh. But for the month of February, he averaged 27 minutes. Like that.
That's a lot for him.
That's a lot for him. It's just a lot. And they they just kind of go back to it as a like the small ball 5 stuff as a crutch. And like there's been a number of commenters asking why they don't go big ball. I think there's a few reasons for that, but I don't know. I waffle because if you're going to lose, it's like what you said earlier. You might want to go down swinging with something new.
Yeah. So and I think the thing is like I'm not. I don't know if more minutes for Gafford helps in a game like this, but I'm total like Lively should like if they could get that minutes restriction, like if he's not on a minutes restriction, he should be playing more. Like if that's like where we can come to a middle ground because the chat seems pretty fired up about wanting to play Gafford more. Mm-hmm. I think my peace pipe or my olive branch would be play Lively more, like play Lively 30, 35 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. If he's able to, like if
I think that would there'd be a handshake meme I think for a significant amount of people because they don't want to see Dwight Powell anymore. They don't want to see Maxi Kleber anymore because if he's not really helping the defense, he's also not helping the offense. Then what are you doing out there?
No, he scored 8 points in the last 3 games.
Yeah, that's not a thing. So, you got to average. I'm sorry. Like if you get this many minutes, if you're playing 27 minutes a game and you're averaging 2.7 points, that's bad. Just that's some science for you, some math.
That's some math. You hit me with the facts.
All right. Is there anything else that's happened? I really don't remember. My previous 2 days are something.
I don't know. It's
honestly, I'm thinking about Dune 2.
I know. Do you want to talk about Josh Green? Because
some
people are fired up about him not apparently 22 points in 28 minutes is not his fault.
No, well, that's just one guy that found me on Twitter. I over-index on Twitter. I want it to be known that if you're a person who in your profile talks about how you're the 7th best player on a given team super fan, I implore you to find new hobbies. That's all. You're allowed to like weird things. I'm just not going to discuss them with you. Like that's all. And I've been pleased with Josh Green's play this year. It's him, Tim, Kyrie, Maxey. If all y'all are gonna play poor, Mavericks aren't gonna win. That's okay. It happens. It's like that sometimes. The Mavericks' path to be out of to be a non-play-in team grows ever more narrow. It's still in play though. They just need to figure it out. The team's healthy now. The 76ers are a weird team right now. I mean, Tyrese, they should run them off the floor, but what are you going to do?
Is it pretty wild that they are now closer to 10th than they are to 6th in the standings right now?
Yep.
They're 2.5 games out of 6. They
this is
are
where
1.5 games up on 9th and 10th.
This is where losing some of those very stupid games earlier in the year, you look back and you go, how do you lose to the Grizzlies like this?
or Cleveland without Mitchell and Garland and Mobley, or losing to Utah by how many was it? Like 37 point loss to Utah. That's not great. But yeah, the schedule is going to be interesting. They play Philly, Indiana, Miami all at home next. Philly's feel like they've kind of found their sea legs without Embiid. They're still not great, but they're not as bad as they were the first week or so. Indiana and Miami are challenging teams, and they get a little reprieve with Detroit and Chicago. Then middle of the month, man, Golden State, Oklahoma City, Denver 3 in a row. They still play Sacramento twice. They play Golden State 3 more times. So we're going to figure this out with the standing stuff. They're going to have their opportunities to either create some separation or they're going to fall back a little bit more. But we'll see. Sure. I don't know. Fourth game in 6 nights. All road games. Last game of a 4-game road trip. I would not be shocked if Sunday they played really well against Philadelphia and people start calming down a little bit more.
Maybe. Hope so. Those afternoon games are. I'm firmly of the opinion that these NBA guys, their routines where they kind of get themselves ready to play at certain points of the day are pretty important. And I think these noon games really mess stuff up. But that's just we'll
Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
We'll see. I could be wrong.
Well, the thing about Gafford, this might be throwing a live grenade 35 minutes into the podcast when we're trying to wrap up, but are we at the point where we have to start thinking about, was it a mistake to trade for him? Not necessarily because of the player he is, but more resource management.
Oh yeah. Haralabos Voulgaris engaged with me on Twitter the other day, and he flat out said that he thought it was a size panic move to need Gafford. And I don't know where I stand on it. I think it'll be really easy to say with hindsight, if they were to go on a run this year, we're not going to care. But this goes back to I was the only person of our staff where I'm like, I don't feel great about this with future asset stuff. And lots of people at the time were like, you need to simmer down. I think those people are primarily right, but we need to see some consistency, I think.
It's more just I'm wondering, there's got to be, because this is the disc, because it's he's not playing, and I'm not shocked at his minutes right now, but they did give up a first. Technically, it's more like they gave up a pick swap in 2028, which is really important. And it's one of those things where I'm not surprised that he's not playing, because I listed out, his team defensive deficiencies in some of these matchups. So it's I'm not mad that Gafford it's not like that. It's not like being mad at the player necessarily, or even mad. I mean, people are going to be mad at the coach, but it's more like they gave up something pretty significant to get him. And it feels like the coach doesn't necessarily need or want him. Now, whether you think the coach is wrong is another argument, but it's this is starting to, I don't know if it's a trend, but it feels like the same thing with Christian Wood, where it's they traded for a guy that kids seemingly wanted nothing to do with. And now we're a couple of weeks into this trade, and it's pretty clear Kid has a quick hook with Gafford, and if he doesn't like what he sees with him, he doesn't play him. Yeah. So now it's well, why did you trade? They didn't just throw away a second rounder or something. They gave up a pick swap, which turned into a first, which theoretically could have been used for another player, or keep them too hard. Look, guys, I'm not trying to cover up for Kids in Confidence. I'm just trying to figure out why there's some sort of disconnect between what the front office is valuing and kind of what the coach values. Now, if the coach is wrong and they move on from the coach, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, you're not firing Kid 20 games left in this season.
No, so that's what I mean, though. I mean, if this goes sideways, there is only one thing you can really make a change with: Jason Kidd.
Yeah. Right.
Boy, howdy.
But it's just weird, right? It's weird to give up a first for a guy that you're not playing. Even if I understand why he's not playing, I'm just well, why did you go get him? It's just weird. There's a disconnect there. And they got to figure that out. They can't keep trading for guys that the coach doesn't like. Either you stop doing that.
Well, I mean, but
you get rid of the coach.
Like who's the guy? The meme. He's the guy that didn't get signed this year, but everybody wanted them to sign it so his kids could get insurance.
Oh my gosh, Tony Snell.
Tony Snell.
Yeah. Why?
I'm friends with a former Bucks front office person. He demanded that they sign Tony Snell. And if you go look at Tony Snell's games logs that year, he stops playing Tony Snell almost immediately.
So this is just a thing.
Same thing. And I mean, honestly, I think he's why they signed JaVale. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
So it's tough where he has a short leash. But then he loves guys like Hardaway. Whereas, I mean, you remember what Hardaway said during what was it? It was way back at the beginning of the year during media day where he's like, I don't know if kid's not told me I'm not starting. This is news to me. Like kid's not a great communicator in the ways that you expect from a top-down coach. He is much more of a friend by manager approach, and I'm sure he's very cutting and when the doors are closed, but he's not a fiery, boisterous guy. That's why, I mean, I pointed out, and we should probably go. We're almost done. But like, there was a point tonight where he called a coach's challenge to a bad out of bounds call, as in who it was off of. He got real fired up, and then the team responded in kind. It was like, oh wow, you mean if your leader shows some emotion, everybody else is going to show some emotion? Weird. Granted, I'm old, and I Gene Hackman and Hoosiers inspired me, and Al Pacino inspired me in Any Given Sunday. I like the rah coach. I don't believe in coaches that kind of mutter shit under their breath at people, which is what Kid does. So anyways, all right, 40 minutes of nonsense. I'm not going to do a second live show tonight. I'm really sorry, guys. I've been up since 5 a.m. And I'll probably be up a long time tonight because I either the kid is both teething and sick. It's weird. But go use your Saturday, do something fun. Should be a nice day out here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I do recommend everyone, even if you have zero interest, go see Dune 2. It was cool.
Did you already go?
Yeah, my wife, we were having such a shitty day because we were going to go try to see it. And then the kid got sent home from daycare, where she was just like, you should go. You want to do this. It's important to you, which it is, because I've been a fan of those books since I read it for the first time when I was like 14, but I didn't understand it because there's like a hell of a lot going on in it. So I've really, he did a really good job communicating some really complicated shit in a 2-hour and 40-minute movie. It's well worth everybody's time just for the visuals and for the sound. And even if you don't care about the weird space politics, but it's got some interesting climate metaphors, politics. It's a really weird book and a really fun movie. So that's my recommendation. All right, everybody, this has been Kirk and Josh Bell. We'll be back on Sunday afternoon, I'm sure, to talk a little more Mavs and Sixers. Thanks so much for hanging out. We'll be back on Sunday. Everybody be good. Go Mavs.